Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're doing a small-scale PvP tier list for Ashes of Creation. When I say small scale, I mean 1v1 duels, 2v2s, 3v3s, and those messy open-world skirmishes where positioning, cooldown trading, and target swapping actually decide the fight. Quick disclaimer before we start. This is based on my personal PvP experience in the current state of the game, with the builds and meta we're seeing right now. Balance changes happen fast, and gear gaps matter a lot. So if you're watching this later, treat it as a snapshot, not an eternal truth. Alright, let's get into it. For God tier, I'm putting only one class here, Summoner. And yes, I'm a Summoner main, so you can call it bias if you want, but I'm saying this because in small-scale PvP, Summoner feels like the full package. You have pressure, sustain, clutch saves, and the ability to control how the fight flows. The class identity is literally built around summoning a vessel and managing essence, winning through attrition and smart control. The healer pet is the reason Summoner becomes ridiculous in small scale. In 1 vs 1, you're basically fighting 2 health bars, and in 1 vs 2 or 1 vs 3 situations, that burst group heal can swing the entire fight if you time it during the enemy's burst window. If they focus you, you have tools to survive. If they focus your pet, you still have tools to keep it alive, and lifesteal style sustain becomes disgusting when they commit to deleting your summon. What makes Summoner God tier is not that it's brainless, it's the opposite. The skill ceiling is high. If you act late, if you greed cooldowns, if you mismanage your pet positioning, you throw the fight. Small-scale PvP rewards players who can micro and make fast decisions, and Summoner benefits more than any other class from that. You also have the kind of crowd control that makes people genuinely lose their mind, especially when you start layering CC while keeping your sustain engine running. In small scale, where fights are tighter and resets matter, Summoner just controls the pace better than anything else. Now S tier. These are the monsters that dominate small-scale PvP, just not as unfair as Summoner in my experience. First, Tank. Tank is S tier because it's the most complete I decide how this fight goes class after Summoner. Tanks are designed to absorb pressure and disrupt enemies, and in small-scale PvP, that becomes terrifying because your job is not just to survive. Your job is to force mistakes. The pull skill is the headline. In a small fight, one clean pull can delete a support or a squishy instantly. And once you start a CC chain on the right target, the fight becomes a numbers advantage fast. Tanks also feel like they have answers to everything. They have survivability, they have control, and they have enough damage that you cannot ignore them. In duels, Tank is one of the few classes that can actually make summoners sweat, especially if they play for mana pressure and force bad trades. You still need to play smart, but Tank absolutely belongs in S tier because it is consistently strong and hard to punish. Next, Rogue. Rogue is S tier because small-scale PvP is all about choosing good fights, forcing cooldowns, and resetting when things go bad. Rogue is literally built around being an opportunist and controlling engagements through stealth and timing. You can bait defensives, vanish or disengage, and come back when your opponent is exposed. That ability to reset fights is priceless in duels and skirmishes. In team fights, Rogue also becomes the player that deletes the backline if your team creates even a tiny opening. You can scout, isolate, punish stragglers, and turn messy fights into clean kills. The main reason Rogue is so fun is also why it's so strong. You are not playing the same PvP game as everyone else. You're playing your own tempo, and the enemy is constantly reacting to you instead of executing their plan. Last in S tier is Bard. Bard in small scale is way stronger than people expect because buffs and debuffs matter more when there are fewer players on the field. Bard is a support archetype at its core, and it can maintain multiple effects and utility to swing fights hard when played well. In small fights, a Bard's value is immediate. Your team hits harder, lasts longer, and has more control. You can make your squad feel unkillable, or you can turn into a burst threat yourself, depending on build and weapon choice. And in 1 vs 1, Bard can be extremely annoying to fight because you can chain control, sustain yourself, and punish mistakes while staying hard to pin down. If you've ever fought a good Bard who knows how to layer CC and keep buffs rolling, you already know why this is S tier. Now A tier. These classes are absolutely strong and can win fights consistently, but they have clearer weaknesses or they rely more on team support and clean execution. First, Cleric. Cleric is the only true dedicated healer archetype, and that alone makes it a cornerstone in small-scale team PvP. If you want to win 3 versus 3s consistently, having a Cleric often feels like playing the game on easier mode, because sustain decides so many fights once the first burst window passes. The reason Cleric sits in A tier instead of S for me is that in small scale, people can coordinate pressure better. Cleric is powerful, but also a clear target, and mana becomes a real limitation if you panic cast or get forced into inefficient healing. In 1 versus 1, Cleric can still win, but it often turns into a battle of patience. You are trading kill pressure for survival, and that means you have to play calm, manage mana, and survive enemy burst windows without blowing everything too early. Next, Ranger. Ranger is A tier because it's one of the best pick classes in small scale. Rangers are built around lethal ranged pressure, tracking, and controlling distance, and that shines when fights are 2 versus 2 or 3 versus 3, and one early kill can end the whole thing. A good Ranger opener can remove someone from the fight instantly, or force defensive so hard that the next CC lands as a kill. Rangers also bring strong utility like roots and silence tools that can set up kills or shut down a healer at the perfect moment. The weakness is simple. If you get caught, you die. Rangers need space, awareness, and clean movement. In duels, you can outplay a lot of classes by kiting and staying disciplined, but against the top-tier duel monsters, you usually need perfect spacing to win. Last in A tier is Fighter. Fighter is a close-quarters bully. The archetype is designed around overwhelming offense, gap closing, and resisting effects that limit movement, and it ramps up as it stays in combat. That's why fighters feel insane when they are allowed to stick to a target. In small-scale fights, a fighter that gets ignored will run over your team. They bring pressure, survivability through aggression, and they punish bad positioning hard. In duels, fighters can win a lot of matchups, but the reason they're A tier for me is that their power often depends on staying connected. If they get kited, if they get peeled, or if they eat CC during their burst window, they can lose momentum and the fight can slip away. Finally, B tier. Only one class here, and it's not because the class is weak. It's because small-scale PvP is not where it gets to be the best version of itself. Mage. Mage is an absolute monster in large-scale PvP, and the archetype is literally built to be an AoE and status effect powerhouse. In small scale, though, people focus properly. And when people focus properly, mages get punished. If a mage is ignored in a skirmish, it's going to melt your team. No question. But most good players will delete the mage early because it's the highest threat and usually the most fragile target in the fight. In 1 versus 1s, mages can still win with spacing and clean control, but they do not have the same reset and survive forever tools the top small-scale classes have. You catch a mage, you CC them once or twice during your burst window, and the fight can end very fast. So yeah, mage is still strong. It just belongs in B tier for small scale specifically, because it's a class that peaks harder when there are more bodies on the field and more chaos to hide in. That's my small scale PvP tier list right now. If you disagree, I want to hear it, because metas evolve fast and people are cooking some weird builds already. Drop a comment with your main class, your build, and what matchups you're struggling with. Also tell me if you want a separate video for best small scale comp and target priority, because that topic alone decides most 3 versus 3 fights. If this helped, like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.